Hello and welcome to the Single Today podcast. My name is Ryan Wekenman. So glad that you decided to join us for episode 8. This one is called The Gift of Rejection. I've had 2 people ask me about rejection this week. It's a topic that nobody likes to talk about, but what I want to answer, or at least think about, is are there any gifts waiting to be discovered in the middle of rejection? And so we're going to get into that in just a second. Real quick though, 2 announcements. Number 1, we need to announce our very first winner of our Single Today Galley giveaway. If you listen to the last episode, a galley is just a rough draft of the book Single Today. And for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to be giving one away each week. All you have to do each Friday is share the reel that I post from that episode and then comment Single Today in all caps. That's how you enter the contest. And then my friend Ethan will be picking the winner, so you can't get mad at me. You got to get mad at him. This week, he picked Jefferson Graham as our very first winner. Jefferson, congratulations. We will get you a copy of Single Today. And now it's time to enter into round 2 of the giveaway. And so there'll be a reel coming out on April 5th. And you can share that and enter to win another one. Okay. Announcement number 2 is simply this. The book comes out in like 2.5 weeks. That's so crazy. I'm so excited. That's all. Much more on that next week. Okay, let's get into episode 8. I was thinking about this topic of rejection on my run a few days ago. That's typically where I come up with my best ideas. And while I was running, I was thinking about 2 words. 2 words that are so similar. In fact, the first 6 letters are exactly the same in each word. It's the same root word, and the meaning of the 2 words is incredibly similar, but they have drastically different connotations. Like the feel of the 2 words is completely different. The first word is humility, and the second is humiliation. Humility, humiliation. Here's what I've started to notice. Humility is a quality that all of us want. Like, who wouldn't want to be seen as humble? And now, of course, you can never say that about yourself, right? Like, calling yourself humble is an oxymoron, like icy hot or unbiased opinion. But what we all want is for other people to call us humble. Humility is a sought after quality. However, humiliation is one of our greatest fears. And that brings us to rejection. There's a lot of reasons why we're so afraid of rejection, but at some level, the answer for all of us is we want to avoid humiliation because it's humiliating, right? It's humiliating to put yourself out there and then get told no. What we hear is, oh, nope, you see, you're not good enough, or you don't have what it takes. And then our mind goes down the rabbit hole toward whatever our insecurity is. You're not funny enough. You're not smart enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not rich enough. You're not strong enough. You're not successful enough. Blah, 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 right? Humiliation is the word associated with rejection. And by the way, I'm well accustomed to this feeling of rejection and the humiliation that comes with it. I know I have minimal relationship experience, although I do have enough to know how bad it hurts to be rejected. It's happened to me multiple times. But as a writer, I experience rejection all the time. Single Today is my first book being published, but it's not my first book I've written. Far from it. I've written a lot over the years that got turned down. Like some just straight up rejected and tossed out. One book I wrote years ago didn't make the cut, and so I turned it into a season of a podcast I do with my friend Keith called Stories in Scripture. And I've done a lot of writing with other people where I'll send them a chapter and then I'll get an email back that's like, yeah, no, that's not it at all. I've been taken off projects halfway through. I understand what it's like to experience rejection and the humiliation that can come with it, because working really hard on something and then being told that it's not it, like that hurts. It's not fun at all. And of course, when it comes to pursuing a romantic relationship, rejection has an extra ounce of weight on it, doesn't it? Here at the Single Today podcast, most of us are single, although we're so glad that you are listening if you are married or in a relationship. But for some, maybe it was like that rejection was just you asking somebody out and them saying no, or for others, it was a breakup you didn't see coming, or for others, it was rejection that holds an immense amount of pain, like years worth of pain. And I just want to say right up top, we all have our own stories. And this episode is not meant to try to water down or minimize the pain of that rejection at all. But I do want to ask a question that may make you roll your eyes at first, but stay with me for a few minutes. Here's the question. Is there any gift waiting for you in the rejection? And that brings us back to our two words, humility and humiliation. Remember how I told you they have the same root word? It's a Latin adjective, humilis, which means grounded. And so humility and humiliation come from the word that means being brought back down to earth, being grounded. And when you think about it, that's a really great quality. Like nobody ever says that person is really grounded in a negative sense. It's a quality we all want. And now we understand that humility leads us to be more grounded. But isn't it interesting that humiliation does the same? In fact, the first gift I see in rejection is that if we'll let it, humiliation will lead to humility. When we get that, we realize humiliation, that thing we're all terrified of, although painful, can also be incredibly helpful. Like, okay, let's start simple. Let's begin with basic rejection. You notice someone, or you meet someone and you're attracted to them. And so you try to start a conversation, you try to get to know them a bit. And then eventually you work up the courage and you ask them out and they say no. This is like baseline rejection, right? The most common form. I'd be willing to bet most people have some version of that story. It hurts. No one enjoys that. No one invites that. No one cheers for that because we get humiliated and then we want to just disappear. We want that invisibility cloak from Harry Potter so we could just be hidden from the world for a couple of hours. And the inner dialogue is, you're such a loser. You're not enough. Why would you think they would ever like you? But what if in that moment you flipped it? You began to speak back to that voice in your head and said, thank you. This humiliation is actually making me more humble, humorless, grounded. Humiliation can, if we'll allow it, help us stay grounded. Humility is the act of being and staying grounded. Humiliation is the reminder that we need to return, the reminder that we need to jump off the pedestal we thought we were on. Humiliation is like God's subtle way of reminding you, hey, I love you just the way you are. You don't have to try to perform for everybody. You don't have to try to earn my love. You're loved exactly the way you are. And so think about that rejection. You know the one I'm talking about. The one that makes you cringe, that one that makes you go, I don't want to think about that. What if you reframe that in your mind right now and said, what a good reminder to choose humility. What a great reminder to not take myself so seriously. What a good reminder to let go a bit, to come back down to earth, to get and stay grounded. See, there's a gift waiting for you in the rejection. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Of course it does. It may not help you just immediately get over it, but it will help you put that thing in its proper place. Like it helps you remember, oh yeah, I'm not some immortal Greek god or goddess. I'm just another human doing my best down here on earth. And that, ironically, is incredibly freeing. And so gift number one, humiliation leads to humility. Now, gift number two, rejection often teaches us what not to do. So we live in a day and age where everyone's trying to teach us what to do. Rejection is a teacher in another sense. Oftentimes it'll teach you what not to do. This one is especially helpful for anyone who went through a really painful rejection, one of those rejections that makes you feel like, how could I possibly learn anything from this experience? Well, maybe it taught you what not to do. So one of the first jobs I had, this was years ago, before I was in ministry, it was in this really tough work environment. I bet you've experienced one of those before. And I remember being at the driving range with one of my mentors, and I was complaining about the job. Like, I'm struggling. I was telling him, like, it's so hard here, and I feel like I'm not learning anything. And he stopped me and said, hold on. You're in this learning season, and you're actually learning all sorts of things about the way you want to lead in the future. And I just looked at him and said, I don't know about that, man. I don't know that I'm learning anything. And he just smiled and said, hey, learning what not to do is still learning. I love that. He flipped it on me. One of the things I was learning is how not to treat people, the type of work environment that I don't want to cultivate one day. And so actually that first job was so valuable to me. I just had to realize that learning what not to do is also learning. So bring that back to being single and to breakups and rejection. It all hurts. But I wonder if there is a gift in the middle of it. The gift of learning what not to do, how not to treat people. Maybe someone said something really hurtful to you and it still hurts, but it also taught you what not to say to other people, like how not to handle rejection if a day comes where you have to turn somebody down. And so rejection hurts, it's painful, yes, but the humiliation it causes will lead to humility if you'll allow it. And rejection often teaches us what not to do in the future. But there's a third gift. The third gift is rejection is a reminder that you aren't for everyone. Okay, question. What is your favorite movie of all time? Seriously, think about it. You have to pick one, just one. Now, if everyone wrote their answer in the comment section, we'd have all sorts of different answers. All amazing movies. But no one movie has ever been agreed upon as the best movie ever made by everyone. And even then, like, you have questions for me that you're shouting at me, like, well, what genre, right? Like, what do you mean by best? Are we talking funniest? Are we talking best writing, best cinematography, most moving, best acting? What is it? Here's my point. When it comes to art, opinions abound. Everybody has their own favorite movie. Well, the same thing is true for romantic relationships. Everyone has preferences. Outgoing or quiet, smart or silly, or smart and silly, or just a little more silly than smart, or whatever. Like, the point is, you can't be for everyone. Every human is wired different. Everyone has their own preferences, dreams, goals, like things they're working toward. And so when it comes to rejection, and you start to play all those mind games about how you're not enough, that you don't measure up, like, just stop, take a breath, and remember, you're probably just on a different path than they are on. Like, your trajectory probably just looks a lot different than theirs. In which case, their rejection is a gift, because it would have been incredibly frustrating to try to go through life with someone who is going a very different direction. Yeah, remember, rejection can be a gift. Now, it's so important to talk about this because we take everything so personally. Someone rejects us and we immediately think, how dare they? Like, for me personally, I'm gearing up for this with my book, with Single Today. I'm so proud of it. I think it's going to help so many people. But the truth is, some people may not like it. Some people may not love the writing style that I use, or the message may be irrelevant, or whatever. And so I'm gearing up for a little bit of rejection to come along with it. Seth Godin has this great line. He's an author, and he says that when, I'm paraphrasing this, but he says when somebody leaves a 1-star review of his book, what he tells himself is, that doesn't mean the book is bad. It means the wrong person found the book. Like, you can't write a book that is for everyone. And you can apply that same principle to dating and relationships. And so if you're dealing with rejection, it probably doesn't have all that much to do with you. It was probably just the wrong person. And understanding that is essential in the single today journey. You want to thrive while being single today? Stop holding on to rejections from yesterday. Now, easier said than done. I get it. Like, if that happens in the book situation, it's still going to be tough for me. Just like if you get rejected today in a romantic situation, it's still going to be tough for you. I get it. The title of this episode is not, here's why rejection has no cons and it's all pros, right? Like, I get it. Rejection is tough. What I'm trying to point out, though, is that there are a few gifts hidden within rejection. And so, like, if that happens to me with the book, what I'm going to try to do is, number one, remind myself that I'm not for everyone. Number two, it's going to be a reminder of what not to do. Like, side note, but I'll never understand like critics and why we think it's so helpful to just tear down art. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I just want to be someone that cheers other people on and offer constructive criticism along the way. But then number three, let the humiliation lead to humility. Like, where I remember, oh yeah, like, I'm not Shakespeare. Like, this was my first book being published. And I have many hopefully coming in the future, and I have a lot to learn. And so come back to a grounded, centered place, realize I did my best, and there are a whole bunch of other people who got a ton out of the book, right? Let the humiliation lead to humility. And I'm saying that now before the book even comes out, so you can let me know in the future how I did handling that rejection if it comes. So in this episode, I want to invite you to do the same thing with whatever rejection you're facing. Again, I know this is so much easier said than done. I'm not saying you're going to get it perfect, but the goal is next time you face rejection, or maybe you're going through something right now, is to do three things. Number one, remind yourself you aren't for everyone. You can't be. Even Jesus got rejected constantly, all the time. He still does today. There are still YouTube channels and podcasts dedicated to rejecting him like every day. Number two, learn what not to do. What were the hurtful and harmful parts of how that person handled it? And then commit to not doing that when you need to turn someone down in the future. And then number three, and this is the big one, let that humiliation lead you to humility, to a place of feeling grounded, feeling comfortable in your own skin, where you can laugh at yourself. That is the gift of rejection. Not an easy episode. But hey, being single isn't for the faint of heart, and thriving while being single today, man, that takes a lot of work. And part of that work is learning how to stare down that evil, scary monster called rejection until you realize it actually isn't nearly as scary as you thought. And that scary monster comes bearing gifts. 3 gifts specifically that can lead you to living a more humble, grounded life. If you play your cards right, you may even come out way more humble than you started. But of course, never tell anyone that you're growing in humility, because that is an oxymoron. How do you like that for the end of this episode? That feels like a good place to end it. Okay, Single Today, episode 8, The Gift of Rejection. Thank you for joining us today. You can pre-order the book, Single Today, The Rise of Singleness. The course is still available. The first 3 chapters are now available if you want to start reading. Would love to hear your thoughts about the first 70 pages of the book and what you think so far. And I cannot wait for April 23rd. It's going to be here before we know it. And then we'll have a whole lot of other content to dive into, because, by the way, all this content has nothing to do with the book. It has something to do with the book. The book's about singleness. But these episodes are all the extra, the bonus, the other stuff to the singleness space. And so with that, we will see you back here for episode 9.